Yes, you've chosen a toxic relationship, but that is not the problem. That is a symptom of the problem. That is a symptom of the pain that you are holding in yourself. That is a symptom of how worthy you view yourself. That is a symptom of how much you love yourself. It's a symptom of your standards and your boundaries and the things that you are choosing in your life and how they impact you and whether or not you allow that to change what you choose. This is Alaska Wolf, and you're listening to the Heartbreak Alchemy Podcast. So I'm so excited to be here with you guys for episode number 2 of the Heartbreak Alchemy Podcast. And I spoke last week a lot about my own journey, how I've made the transition from being in this super toxic relationship, living in a city where I didn't feel aligned, with not very many friendships around me, struggling in my career, struggling in finding out what I wanted in life, who I was in life, what I was doing in life. And how I moved from that reality to this beautiful reality that I live in now, where I live in Thailand and I do a job that I absolutely love, working with women who are moving through heartbreak. I have beautiful relationships and friendships in my life. I'm really clear on who I am and what I want in this world, what I'm creating in this world, what's important to me in this world, what makes me happy in this world. And I think one of the things that can be really challenging is when you see people that have moved through that transition to just kind of be like, wow, how though, you know? Because it seems like this giant leap that seems impossible from where you can feel like you are in the moment when you're moving through a heartbreak or when you're in that process of, you know, trying to actually create a different life, because you're sitting in your apartment and you're just looking around and being like, God damn it. Like, I feel like I'm still in the same place. Like, I've gone through this heartbreak. I feel cracked open. I feel like I have lost everything I knew, including the future that I thought I was going to have, the partner I thought I was going to be with, the version of myself I thought I was going to get to be for the next few years or for the rest of my life. Who knows? And so it's really this moment where there can be a lot of uncertainty, where there can be a lot of fear and anxiety that comes up about the future, because it looks like, you know, you're looking out in front of you and seeing these people that have made these amazing transformations. And it's just like, but how day to day, moment to moment, week to week, month to month, like, how did you make that happen? And I remember feeling like that when I was at the beginning of my own journey, because it just felt like I was in Groundhog Day, you know, like every day I would wake up and it would be the same thing where I just still felt like shit. I was still thinking about my ex-partner, like I still wanted him back, and I just didn't really feel like anything was changing, you know? Like, it just kind of felt like over and over and over, it was just the same reality every single day. And anything that I did just didn't feel like it was big enough or grand enough or going to make the big enough change that I needed it to make. Like, I needed it to make, because I needed things to be different. And this is a moment where it's so easy to get sucked into what the world wants you to do, which is not much. The world will tell you when you're moving through a breakup that the best thing that you can do is to get out there, see people, do other things, forget about it, like just look different directions than any of the things that are causing you pain, you know? Like, maybe start dating again, hook up with somebody, go see your friends, whatever it is. And like, those things might have a place in your healing journey. Like, there's no judgment if this is the way that you're coping and like going about your life in this moment. But there's so much that will happen for you when you actually stop and say, I'm not going to do it that way this time. And I'm really excited to get into today's topic, because I think one of the most powerful things that I did when I was on my healing journey was listen to podcasts, honestly. Because there was something about the way that my breakup and my heartbreak kind of spat me out that left me feeling so like stuck. Like it really felt like I was in quicksand when I got out of my last relationship. Because the truth was, I had been drowning in mud for a long time inside of that relationship, you know, and I just really had not been paying attention to it, because it felt like all of the action, all of the kind of like flailing my arms and kicking my feet that it took to remain in that relationship became a distraction from all of the parts of my life, not just my relationship, that were not in alignment anymore. And all of this action felt like I was doing something about that. And there was just this quiet, this silence after my ex-partner left, where I kind of came face to face with myself in a really big way. And I went into a lot of depth on my own story in last week's episode. So if you haven't listened to that, I really recommend that you go back and check it out, because I think the context of where I'm coming from really will give you a lot of understanding of like what the journey has been like to get from there to here. And that's what I want to talk about in today's episode. I want to go into a little bit more of the nuts and the bolts of like how, like how. Because 3 years ago, I was in this incredibly toxic relationship, incredibly push-pull. It was unsafe. It was damaging. It was destructive. It was abusive. And I was also living in a city at the time where I had really fallen out of love with the city. Like I found it very hard there. I found it very disconnected. I really had never really found my place, if I'm honest. I really didn't have a group of friends that anchored me there or anything other than an apartment. Like I had a really beautiful apartment and that made me feel anchored there. But in terms of like community or people around me, I didn't feel it. I didn't have it. There was this part of my life as well where I was working all of the time tirelessly. Oh my God, I was obsessed with my career. I was a DJ and an interior designer, and I was always hustling to make these two things that I was doing go, but they never really felt like they were taking me where I wanted them, you know? With the DJing, I loved DJing so much. I loved playing so much, but there's so much politics in being a DJ. It's like, are you hot enough? Do you know the right people? Are you cool enough? Like all of these questions where I constantly felt like this career was bringing me up against all of these edges and all of this insecurity and all of these worthiness questions of like, am I cool enough? Am I young enough? Am I pretty enough? Am I good enough? Am I like all of these things? And so like that was a really challenging industry. And I really felt with my interior design work, like it was so masculine. Like I had to be so in control, dealing with men and dealing with numbers and details and just like being so on and so present in this very masculine way where there was no time for like how you felt or like what you needed in any moment. And you know, at that time in my life, at that period in my life, all of that kind of suited me because I was not somebody that knew what they needed, what they wanted. I was completely out of connection with my body. I was just like not listening if I needed or wanted something. And so I could just push through. Like I was a trooper, you know, like I could just go and go and go and stay and stay and stay. And that was really a theme that existed in so much of my life. You know, this relationship that was tearing me apart, that was causing me so much struggle in my life, I just stayed. I stayed because that was what I learned love was, you know, no matter how crazy things get, no matter how hard, no matter how painful, no matter how much it's costing you, you stay. And that was what I learned. And so that's what I did. And that's what I did with all of the things in my life, you know. I found walking away from anything so goddamn challenging. You know, some of the hardest things I've ever done in my life have been move cities, or give up a career that I've been working on, or leave a relationship that's really causing me so much pain, because it's so painful to have to walk away from things. Because I think when you're in those relationships or places, you at least feel like there's some sort of place for you there. You know what to expect. And in some ways, if you know what to expect, you'd rather that safety, that comfortability of like, at least knowing what's coming, rather than stepping off what feels like an edge into the unknown. You know, it's that whole thing of like, you'll choose a familiar hell over an unfamiliar heaven. And I feel like that's what I was doing in my life for a really long time. I was treading water because I felt like I had already invested so much in all of these aspects of my life. I had been living in Berlin for 8 years, say 6 years at the time where my relationship ended. I had been a DJ for about 8 years. I had been an interior designer for many years. I was really like trying so hard at all of these things to make them work that I never really even stopped to say like, do I actually want this? Is this right for me? And so it seems like such a leap to be where I am now because like, wow, it's literally like my entire life is so different now, like everything. Because in the space of a few years when I decided truly to heal, to change, to like radically become a different version of myself, and then I like came out the other end, and now I'm recording this podcast in my beautiful home in the middle of the jungle in Thailand. I live beside the ocean. I go walking my dog every day. I have beautiful relationships and friendships in my life. I have a community of people around me that share my values, that have a similar vision for what they want for their lives and for the earth and for the universe. I'm connected to my body in a way that I was never connected to my body before. I'm connected to what I feel and what I need and what I want and what I dream of and what my desires are. I retrained. I work with women now. I have the most beautiful job in the world working with women to move through their own healing and expansion after heartbreak. And it's so incredible. Like, it's so perfect for me because my obsession has always been people and love and relationships and just like all of the nuances of people, their idiosyncratic ways, the ways that they interact with each other, like what we're all here for. And this is like a completely new reality. Like, I had no idea that I could make these changes. I had no idea that I could make these brave and bold moves. And there's this bit that's in the middle, right? Where it's like, from the outside, you might hear this description. You might see my story. You might see me on social media talking about my life or my life before and be like, okay, but what happened in the middle? Like, what did you do? Specifically, what did you do? And I mean that from a like, I've been in that place where you might be right now, where you're sitting on the floor of your apartment, where you're like, oh my God, my entire life has just evaporated. Everything I thought that was going to be is no longer going to be. I don't know who I am. I don't know what I want. I don't know where my life is going. And I'm terrified, you know? And if that's the moment you're in right now, know that that's a normal part of the process. And the question of like, but how do you do it is such an important one. And I think something that we really lose sight of, because the way that social media primes our brain is to see like, you know, those TikToks or those Instagrams where somebody is like walking and they're like, I'm going to change my body. And then it's like, poof. Then they are there like a year later and they're a completely different version of themselves. And you're just like, whoa, but like what? And we lose connection with the work that happens in the middle bit, right? We don't really pay attention to that bit. And I think sometimes we need to like slow down and talk about the really minute details of what it takes to really change your life after heartbreak. What does it take to really become a different version of yourself? And so the name of this podcast is actually no mistake. Heartbreak Alchemy. Alchemy is the process of profound transformation or discovery or creation. It's the turning of lead into gold. It is using something that is so painful to create something in your life that is so extraordinary. By using that pain, by using that experience as a catalyst to do the healing, to come back home to yourself, to learn who you are, to get back in connection with what you want, to reconnect with the life that you want to have. And that's why it's so incredibly profound. Because heartbreak can be this thing that even though it's so painful, it will bring you back home to yourself. There's this really beautiful saying that's like, what breaks your heart clears your vision. And I really believe that because it was so true for me. My heartbreak opened my eyes to things that I was ignoring and choosing not to see for the longest time. And this rock bottom was like this clarity of all these things that I never really realized that I was ignoring in my life. And it was honestly like one day I just noticed when I was sitting in my apartment, there was this little door, and behind that door was all of these truths, all of these ways that I was avoiding myself and running from myself and having a life that I didn't really want and choosing people that were wrong for me and in these patterns and cycles and just stuck in these ways of being because of who I thought I needed to be in this world. And it really felt like this moment of an incredible crossroads in my life, because it was like I had seen this little door into this new reality that existed inside of my apartment, and I had really only two choices. Like, I could either stay sitting in my apartment pretending that that door didn't exist, just shove my couch up against it and pretend that I had never seen any of those truths, any of those things about my life or about myself or about the things that I was choosing in this world, and just go on with my life, just continue doing the things that I was doing, the patterns that I was playing out, the people I was choosing, stay in the same relationships with the same jobs and stay in the same city, in the same apartment, because I felt like there was so much to lose if I actually saw what was true behind that door. Or I could choose the other thing, which is to go over to the door and look through, to see what might be possible on the other side of those realizations, those truths. Like, what would happen if I started asking myself the questions about all of the things that I had seen? What if I actually tried to understand what was going on in my own relationship to myself that was keeping me in these relationships, in these toxic patterns, in this city, in these friendships, in this job, in this lack mentality? Like, what was going to happen if I actually put time into asking those questions and finding out those answers? And I just knew that there was no part of me that could just pretend that I had never seen these things. And in many ways, that's the moment that my life changed. Because there's some things that you just can't unsee. Like, once you recognize that these are the truths of your life, you have no choice but to pay attention to them. And maybe it was just my fortune, my good luck, that it was in the moment of COVID where all this happened, where there was that time and space, that natural time and space, in a way that I might have had to work harder for in my normal life. So I feel very grateful that that came at that very moment in my life. But I'm also aware that, like, when you see this door, no matter whether it is the busiest time of your life or the quietest moment of your entire existence, when you see that door and you understand that truth, you have to walk through it. Because walking through that door is the thing that's going to change your entire life. And I really saw that there was a very stark reality, because I knew that if I chose not to walk through that door, what I was actually signing up for was not just me staying in my apartment and staying comfortable. It was actually more loops of this same pattern inside of my relationships, inside of my money story, inside of my jobs, inside of my friendships, inside of my career. Like, it's all the same loop. Because all of the things that I was experiencing inside my relationships, they also existed in the rest of my life, you know? The unworthiness, the lack of choosing myself, the people pleasing, the no boundaries, like the not being connected to my body or my needs or my wants, my intuition. Like, all of these things showed up everywhere, just with more potency inside of my relationship. That's why when the relationship fell apart, it really was a cracking open where I finally saw all of these things. And so something that I really want to start to illuminate for you is actually like the how. From that moment of seeing the truth, from that moment of being alone in my apartment with this door to truth, this door to the fucking reality of what my life actually was. What then, you know? Like, how do you move from this person that's just been through this incredible heartbreak, seeing all these truths about yourself and your life and your choices and your beliefs and your thoughts and your patterns? And how do you actually physically, mentally, emotionally, spiritually get yourself to become this new version? Because it can feel kind of esoteric, right? It can feel like, the hero's journey that we see in movies, but like, what are the day-to-day actions that are making that a reality? Let's all take a breath. It feels like a big question. And so what I really want to get into in this episode is more around the how of it all. Like, how do I become a new version? How do I create a different life for myself when all I've ever known is this version of myself with these thoughts and these beliefs and these ways of being and these patterns and these choices? Like, how do I get a new life if all I've ever known is this version of myself and I've never known how to not be this version of myself, And we live in this very immediate society where we really want like immediate transformation and immediate new result. And like, if we don't have it within a year, we're thinking like, oh my God, I'm failing. But the truth is, this is a process. Healing is a process that you will go through. And there are stages to it as well. Like, I really was talking about this a little bit in last week's episode, but there is this initial period of this phase of healing where you are just out there gaining awareness. Like the first aspect of any healing journey is the awareness that something is going wrong and that something needs to change. Starting to drill down into what actually might be the nuts and bolts of those things that need to change. What is happening underneath the surface? Like, yes, you've chosen a toxic relationship, but that is not the problem. That is a symptom of the problem. That is a symptom of the pain that you are holding in yourself. That is a symptom of how worthy you view yourself. That is a symptom of how much you love yourself. It's a symptom of your standards and your boundaries and the things that you are choosing in your life and how they impact you and whether or not you allow that to change what you choose. And so the awareness is an incredibly important starting point. And it's also not the finishing point, Like, if awareness was enough to change things, we would all have perfect lives because we would bring awareness to it and then all of a sudden, poof, it would be different. But that's not how the world works, and that's certainly not how human behavior works. Awareness is just the first step. And then you need to be willing to take the action based on that awareness. You need to do the healing based on that awareness. You need to become willing to spend the time and to cry the tears and to see the truth and to feel the grief. You need to make the effort to return to your body. You have to thaw the numbness. You have to learn to take risks and make new choices and become a different woman and do things differently. Like, when you see yourself in your future, you see yourself as this powerful, vulnerable, authentic person who's willing to take big risks, who's willing to stand up for what she believes in, who really is connected to herself and her body and her sensuality and her sexuality, who is fully herself out in the world, who moves through the world feeling confident and secure and safe because she gives those things to herself. She's not a victim of the patterns or the choices that she keeps just making. She is intentional and she is conscious and she is awake and she is aware and she is fucking alive. Because I know that you are connected to that version of yourself, if only through a little gossamer thin thread right now. Because you are choosing to listen to this podcast. You are choosing to have these ideas downloaded into you. You are choosing to show up. And that is what shows me, that is what proves to me that this is possible for you. Because otherwise you wouldn't hold this vision. You wouldn't be on this path. And so let's talk about some of the action steps to allow you to start to ground into this new reality, to start to build this version of yourself, to start to build this woman. And I'm going to lead you through some of the steps that I took on my own journey, things that were invaluable, things that seemed obvious, things that I never thought of before in my life until I was looking back on them. And the first one was I got sober. And so for me, what that meant was that I quit drinking. I had gotten into a pretty bad habit of drinking in the afternoons / evenings. It was COVID, so give me a little grace. And sometimes that was just a beer, and sometimes that was a bottle of wine. And sometimes that was with a friend, and sometimes that was alone. And during this time, I was also taking some drugs, and I cut that out also. And when I talk about sobriety, what I mean is also sobriety in life from substances, but it's also sobriety from distraction, sobriety from avoidance. Because we are really shown in this world so many ways to distract ourselves, to avoid what we're feeling, to avoid what we want and need, to just avoid ourselves. And that looks like social media, or getting distracted in Netflix, or running out and getting distracted by other people, really seeking validation as a way to sedate ourselves from what we feel. And so really letting that go, letting myself get sober in my world was the thing that brought me back home to myself. Like, oh, wow, okay, wow. Why am I looking to avoid my life right now? Why am I trying to avoid myself? What am I seeking in all of this distraction? And for me, the truth was I was seeking a way away from all of the things that I felt, which was like this longing for my partner back, this resentment, this anxiety about what I would do next, this kind of gnawing sensation of like, I'm not good enough. And like, what am I going to do now? This just proves I'm not good enough, and I don't like my life, and I have to make all these changes, and I'm so afraid. And so it made so much sense that I wanted a way out of that. But the thing is that when you're allowing yourself to avoid recognizing any of those things, it means that you are stuck living that life for an extended period of time. Like, you are living that life because you avoid being aware of the fact that you feel this way about it. And so one of the most powerful things you can do for yourself is to start to recognize the places where you are avoiding yourself or distracting yourself. What is it that you're trying to avoid? And so the second thing that I did in my world was I started to create structure to my life, in my mornings, in my world, because I really realized that the breakup had sent me so off kilter. Like, I really felt like everything that I had known before had fallen away. All my natural habits had fallen away. And so I really needed to start to integrate more structure into my life. And so what that looked like for me to bring a really healthy, positive spin to the beginning of my day was to get up nice and early. So for me, that was around 7 or 8 o'clock. And I would immediately go out into nature with my dog. So I would go to the forest, I would go to the lake, I would just get out of my house and get walking in the sun. Ideally, it wasn't always sunny in Berlin. And just give myself that time to like get back into my body, to allow whatever I had dreamt about or anything that had happened in the day previously to just fall away, to really get myself into a frame of mind where I felt more grounded and centered in myself, where I was connecting with nature, when I was getting that vitamin D. Like, it was so powerful. Something that I added a little bit later on was also meditation. So at the time, I was just doing it because I had heard it was good for you. Like, I didn't really know that much about it. But when I look back, what that did for me was it really gave me some mental clarity. Because the rest of the time in my life, I was just worrying. My whole brain was just so hyperactive with like, what are they doing? What are they doing? What's going to happen in my life? Oh my God, am I broken? Oh my God, what? And this meditation was just this point where I was able to bring a little bit more energetic clarity into my mind, into my reality. And it was me also starting to really regulate my nervous system, because I was concentrating on my breathing and I was bringing focus to my reality, and I was just slowing the fuck down, basically. And so something to really look at is like, what are the habits that you have right now in the mornings? How do they make you feel? What is going on? What are the patterns that you are bringing in from the chaos of that relationship? Or what are the patterns that you are sticking to in your life right now that are not benefiting you, that are not bringing you into the version of yourself you want to be? Like, this version of yourself that you know you want to be, that's more centered and confident and takes care of herself. Like, what does her morning look like? And so what's really beautiful is to really start to create an intentional morning routine where you are getting some sun, where you are meditating, where you are coming back down into your body. Maybe you're doing a cold plunge, or maybe you're actually going into your shower, and at the end of your shower, you're going to have a minute where you turn it to cold and allow yourself to really feel that nervous system regulation that comes from feeling that cold water on your skin and breathing through it, allowing yourself to drop the levels of cortisol that are in your body, to really return to what it is to be in your body, to regulate yourself, to come back to your center. So something else I incorporate in my mornings now is shaking. So every morning when I wake up, I'll put on a song for about 5 minutes and I'll just shake. I'll shake out any of the stress or any of the things that are held in my body, any of those, emotions that are stuck somewhere. I allow myself to shake and complete those cycles, those stress cycles of emotions that maybe I tapped down during the day the other day because I didn't have time to feel upset or grief or whatever. And all of those things are stuck inside of my body. And so shaking really allows you to just let them all out. And it's such a powerful practice that I do it now, still to this day. This is the way that you set yourself up for the rest of the day. This is the way you start to, in your lived physical reality, become the version of yourself that you are wanting to be in this world. And these things might feel small, but believe me, they all add up. So the next part of this was starting to expand my world. And I mean this more in like my world view. So when you're in a toxic relationship, or when you're moving through a heartbreak, or you're having challenge inside of your relationships in your life, you can start to believe that's all that exists. It becomes a little bit of a feedback loop where you're like, oh my God, my relationship is a shithole, and like everything around me is just wrong, and I don't like it, and I don't like my life. And like, then might talk to your friends about it, and they might reflect back that they're having a similar experience. And you start to really just like get stuck in this bubble where everything feels impossible and like there's no other way for your life to be. And so something really powerful that I did in this moment of my healing journey was go on this journey of expanding my mind about what was possible for me, about what's possible in the world, especially, when it came to like love and sex and relationships. And I did this by going out and getting information, by listening to podcasts and by reading books, and by really just like taking in all of this content that allowed me to open up my view and my perspective of what's possible for me. Because a really important part of this moment in my healing was that I really decided that I was never going to repeat this relationship again. Like, I was just not going to allow myself to be available for this kind of relationship. And so I really needed to start to believe that it was possible for something else to be available to me, beyond anything deeper that I needed to look at, like the patterns or the themes that were present inside of my relationships, or what beliefs I might be holding about myself that these patterns and these relationships were showing to me. I really needed to believe that I could have something different. And so really opening up myself to believing that was by getting proof, by seeing other people have it. And so what was really important for me was starting to open up my belief system. Like, what would be possible for me in my life or in my relationships if I actually believed that I could have what I wanted? What would my relationships look like if I believed that I could have love where I had a power match partner, where we had fun, we were playful, but it was loyal and intimate, and just like, what if it could be everything I ever wanted? In a way that my frame of mind and my belief system just didn't allow me to explore at the time when I was in my toxic relationship, because I thought it would hurt more if I believed in those things, if I believed I could have those things, and also I was choosing what I was choosing, which was toxicity and destruction, then like, what did that mean about me, And so really opening up my view of what was possible was a game changer for me. And so this moment in my healing became a really pivotal crossroads, because I really knew that I had come to a point where I had done as much as I felt like I could do on my own. I basically had gotten sober. I had this really great and solid morning routine. I had asked myself these questions. I had brought in awareness around what was going on for me inside of my own relationship to myself that was causing me to have these patterns and these beliefs and these thoughts that were going on for me and making me choose these types of relationships or these things in my life. I had opened up my view of what would be possible for me in the world if I did heal. And I really had this new sense of belief that if I could do the healing, if I could really make big change in my life, that these things would be possible for me. And so this was the moment that really became the turning point in my healing journey, because I had done so much for myself already, but I knew that I was at the moment in my journey where I needed support. Like I really needed to get to the crux, the core of the repeating cycles. I needed to heal the thoughts and the beliefs and the conditioning and the patterns. And I needed to heal the things that were keeping me stuck in my life and stuck in my relationships. And so I decided to get on a call with a coach. And just on that call, I just felt with every fiber of my being that this was going to be the thing that changed everything. Like this support, getting these tools, like having this person standing beside me as I went through this journey that could reflect back to me the things that I could not see, that could be there to hold me when I was moving through things that were really challenging, that could lead me when I was expanding into places that I had never been. And so at this moment in my life, I went all in. I invested $12,000 into a coaching program that literally splits my life into the before and the after. Because I used to be a person that could not even buy a bottle of water when I was out in the world, because I would be like all of these excuses, all of these like thoughts like, oh my God, you don't want to use single-use plastic and you have water at home and all of these things that just kept me from meeting my own needs. Ultimately, that's what it was. And so this was the moment in my journey where I had done enough to get myself to the place where I could feel solid enough, secure enough, worthy enough, aware enough of what I needed, that I actually made the choice to invest in myself. And it was literally something that I am so grateful that I took that crazy feeling choice, because it literally changed everything. And so in this moment of your healing, you're going to be faced with a really real question of like, how do you feel about having support in your life? Do you allow yourself to have the support that you need? Do you allow yourself to have the things that you need? What would happen if you actually let go of the belief that you had to do everything alone? What if you could actually get to a point in your relationship with yourself that you felt worthy enough to give yourself the things that you want and need, to give yourself help, to give yourself support? Because this truly was a game changer for me. And this was me reaching over the bow, reaching like, it's really like the point at which the person and the version of yourself you are now has to reach out into the future and just touch the version of yourself that you're becoming. And you might only be touching with just like a wisp of a fingertip at this moment in time. But there is a leap you need to make. And for me, that was this program and getting that support. And it really changed everything for me. And so as I started to work with this coach, so much of the work that we were doing was around the body and the nervous system. And I had really been disconnected from my body for the longest time because I felt like that was the safest way to be numb and to not pay attention to how I felt or what I needed or what I wanted or what I didn't want, so that I could be the easiest version of myself for everybody else. But the truth was, when I was stepping over my sensations and my emotions and my intuition and what I actually wanted, I was keeping myself in that version of myself that thought that was the only way to be loved or to get the things that she needed in her life. And so returning to my body, returning to my nervous system, returning to my sensuality and sexuality was actually like this beautiful microcosm of healing, because it was the way that I was able to get back in contact with what I need and want and what those things feel like in my body. What does it feel like in the emotions that you're feeling? What does it feel like for you to feel anger or pain or a yes or a no? And so coming back into connection with my own body was such a game changer. And it also made a lot of my life impossible, which sounds scary, but is a gift. Like, it was getting back in contact with my body that made me leave Berlin, because I finally felt how much it was bothering me to still be there, like how unsafe I felt, how much I wanted to be beside nature, how much it was taking out of me to be in this city every day. And so when I was finally back into my body, I had to start making new choices, because it was the choices that I were making were completely incompatible with what I wanted my life to feel like. But if you're in a space in your life where you're ignoring what it feels like to be in your life, you're able to stay in a life that's chaotic and crazy and not really meant for you. And so getting back down into your body is a game changer. It is the most important thing you will ever do. And so I actually ask you to consider, what is it that keeps you outside of your body? Why do you feel like you are disconnected from your body and your sensations and your emotions? What is that trying to protect you from? What is that level of connection helping you with or hindering you from in your life? And so some practices that you can integrate into your life to start to nurture that connection with your body, to start to nurture that connection with your sensations and your senses, are things like dancing, shaking, touching your body, really noticing, like really slowing down and just noticing what it is to touch your body, to feel the sensations of your fingers on your skin, to feel what it feels like to have air from a fan trickling across your face. Slowing down to notice what it feels like in your body when you are experiencing a certain thing or you're moving through a certain emotion. Like, what's the felt sense reality of that? Like, something that I used to struggle with a lot was anxiety. And so for me, that would be like in my solar plexus, so heavy, and also like this tingling, but not tingling in a good way, like this tingling, like kind of like bubbles of champagne that make you feel like nervous and light, and kind of you can feel like a rush of energy going through your body. But, just noticing what those things are and allowing yourself to bring more awareness to them really allows you to connect in better with what it feels like in each situation in your life. Do I like this? Do I want this? Do I say yes? Do I say no? Is this my boundary? Is this fear? Is this intuition? So the body is such an incredibly powerful tool for you in your life. And it's one that we are so disconnected from. The next part of my journey was really coming back to self-love and self-trust. I really started to show up for myself day after day after day in ways that were loving, that allowed me to trust myself. Because one of the things that we can hear so often is that, like, you have to learn to love yourself. And it's like, okay, cool, I'll just say that I love myself and then, that'll do it. But the truth is, like in relationships with other people, actions and words are two very different things. And you know that the way that somebody shows up in their actions tells you everything about how they actually feel about you. So if you are somebody that is saying, love myself, I love myself, I love myself, but you are showing up in ways that show you don't care about yourself, that you don't value yourself, that you don't give yourself the things you want and need, that aren't loving, aren't caring, aren't prioritizing of yourself, then what you're going to experience in your body is this incongruency between what you say and what you do. And so really loving yourself is showing up in ways that allow you to feel that love, to experience that love. And so for me, that was like, it was everything. It was like allowing myself to get a cab home when I was really tired. It was saying no to the invitation that I didn't want to go to. It was literally leaving spaces that I felt uncomfortable. It was giving myself the things I needed, whether that be like literally anything, a massage, or yes, I started getting a lot of massages at this point in my life because I was like, I need this. And I kept on showing up for myself. I would do the things I said I would do. I would show up in a way that allowed myself to feel loved, but also trust myself that I could give myself the things I needed. which was a game changer because in my relationship, I didn't trust myself because I was never choosing myself. I was always choosing the other person. And so to start to give myself the love that I would always give everybody else was a game changer. Game changer. Which leads me on to the other thing that I was doing at this time, which was a lot of worthiness work. Like, what are the things that were holding me back from believing that I deserved these things? What were the patterns? What were the beliefs? What were the thoughts? And really starting to bolster my own worthiness, like the knowledge that I am good enough. I am perfect as I am. Like the authentic me is worth the things that I desire and dream of. The authentic me is worth the love that I want. When I trust that I am who I'm meant to be, and when I trust that the universe will show me the people and the places and the things that are meant for me, when I am truly authentic, then it means that I don't need to just like hide myself or pretend I'm somebody else in order to be worthy of the things that I want. And so really starting to give myself that knowledge, to really impress it upon me, to like allow it to fill up my every pore, was so life-changing. Because when you feel worthy of the things that you desire in the world, you start to show up in ways that allow you to have them, right? So like when I decided that I wanted to do this coaching and it was like $12,000 and I really had to make this leap of like, oh my God, this is crazy, but you want it and you desire it, and like I'm going to honor that, and it feels insane, but you really are worthy of the things that you desire. And I just had to trust, I had to make that leap that I would be able to afford it and that I would be able to find the money and that I would be secure even if I spent the money, you know? And that was a really big jump. But the thing about making bold, crazy feeling jumps is that once you do it, you start to do it and it starts to feel more like a habit. Because that was one jump that I made, but it was certainly not the last in my healing journey. But really feeling worthy of giving myself what I wanted was so incredibly powerful and such a game changer in my life. So something else that also kind of ties in there is really setting strong boundaries for yourself and honoring those desires when they come. Because the thing about our lives is that we can sometimes not take ourselves very seriously, you know? Like when we reach a limit or when we have a desire in our life, we'll just kind of step over it and think like, you know, that's crazy, or I shouldn't have that, or it's too much, or you know, it's okay if they do that, or if I don't want that, it's okay. I'll just like suck it up and deal with it. But like truly changing your life is going to come when you actually start to pay attention to what your body is telling you yes and no. You know, like those little nudges of desire where you're like, oh, this person, this thing, this opportunity, this experience, this place, all of these things are your intuition, your desires showing up inside of you and saying, this is the direction for you to walk in life. This is the way. And so when you actually start to listen to yourself and make changes based on how you feel, then your entire life shifts. Because sometimes you have a plan with your mind about how things are going to be and what your life is going to look like. And then when you're actually living your life, you start to notice like, that doesn't actually fill me up. That's not really making me feel good. Like I feel like I need to switch, but my mind says I should be going for X marks the spot. But you get halfway to X and you're like, this doesn't feel good. And you notice that there's this draw from the left-hand side or from the right-hand side. One way is like a hard no, and one way is like an, oh my God, maybe there's something interesting for me over there. And like when you actually start to follow those little nudges, your entire life starts to change because you start to be following what you want in each moment, even when it makes no sense. Right? Instead of stepping over your boundaries and just continuing to go to the place that makes sense, quote unquote, the X marks the spot. And this is something we can do really often in relationships because we feel like the relationship is the most important thing. And so we start to step over our own boundaries and we start to pretend that our desires are not important. And so when you are in this process of creating this new version of yourself and this new beautiful life, one of the most powerful things you can do is actually stop and ask yourself, like, what do I want and need? What is the vision for my life? Where am I going? What do I want to create? And then while you're aiming for that, listen to yourself as you walk that path. Listen to the nudges. Allow yourself to be shown where to go in life. And this is the moment in your life where you have to get hella fucking brave. Because when you start to follow the things that you want in your life, you have to start making bold and brave choices. Things that you might never have dreamt possible now come into the realm of possibility, but they require you to become a bigger and bigger version of yourself every single time to rise and meet them. And so there's this moment where you need to really build that in yourself. Like, I trust myself. I trust the universe. I trust where I'm going. I trust that I will honor my boundaries. I trust that I will follow my direction. I trust. Because trusting yourself and trusting the universe and building that sense of courage in yourself, because you know you will always give yourself what you need, is so powerful. And so ways you can actually bring this into your life right now is like, what would my life look like if I gave myself permission to actually take the risks in my life? Like, how could I actually transform my entire life if I was really believing in myself and trusted myself 100%? Like, if I knew that I would choose myself and take care of myself and prioritize myself, what risks could I take? What might be possible for me if I actually took those edgy steps and did those things that I feel scared to do? Because when you are brave, when you have the courage to make new choices and to just like do things you've never done, the world starts to open up. A new life becomes possible on the other side of that. Another thing that I really focused on when I was moving through this healing journey was healing my attachment style. Coming back to myself, coming back to self-sourcing safety and security, and really getting back in contact with what I wanted and needed in a relationship. Because so much of my attachment style, which was so anxious, was all about the other person. It was about giving and being whatever they wanted and just like gripping onto them to have some sense of safety or love or belonging or attachment. And all of the things that I was doing in the outside world, like around worthiness and self-love and security and safety and nervous system regulation, all of this was what allowed me to heal my attachment style. But it was such a pivotal piece of the pie because I really knew that the next relationship I wanted to get into, I didn't want to have to deal with all of this like activation and all of this fear and, like also the making of bad choices, where all of the things that I was struggling with, all of the fear and anxiety was motivating me to choose people that were basically going to replicate the struggles that I had in love in my childhood, that could never satiate the lust and the desire that I had for love. They just could never quench my thirst for love because I was not giving myself the love I needed first. And so anybody else's love was never going to touch me because I didn't truly believe I was worthy of love. And so really paying attention to your nervous system and your activation level and your attachment style and healing those things is pivotal in this journey of healing. And so this is the moment where you start to create powerful new standards for what it takes to be in your life. And I mean that for people, I mean that for friendships, I mean that for relationships, I mean that for experiences, all of it. Like, what are the standards that you will accept and not accept in your life? And this might mean letting go of parts of your life. It might mean letting go of people or experiences or places or homes, or it might mean letting go of parts of your life that you thought you would be bringing with you because they no longer are up to the standard of what you expect in your life. You need to start to create a world around you that requires a certain level to be near you, right? That reflects who you are and who you are continuing to become. But if you actually want to have a different life, you're going to need to hold different standards because you want to experience certain things with people and with experiences and with situations and with your career and with your money and with your location and your house. And all of those things are going to require necessarily that you say no to things that are below that standard. And it's a powerful thing. Like when you start to say no to things that no longer align for you, the universe listens. But it might test you a few times. like send you somebody, a friend or a relationship that's like almost, but you notice that they take more than they give. Or you notice that, they really bring you into a part of yourself where you start to not really believe in yourself anymore. Like for whatever reason, like when you're with them, your energy drains a bit and you just kind of feel like, oh, I don't know. And so you're going to necessarily have to say no to those people and to those experiences for you to have that space filled up with somebody that meets your standard. And this is how you radically change your entire life. Because not only through this process have you become a different version of yourself, the version that can dream bigger and that has this bigger version for your life, but you will do whatever it takes to get there. You will do the worthiness work. You will love yourself. You will show up for yourself. You will trust yourself. You will regulate your nervous system. You will work with your body. You will work with your sensuality and sexuality. You will give yourself what you need and want. And then all of a sudden, your life just opens up in ways that felt unimaginable to you a year ago, 2 years ago, 3 years ago. It truly is incredible. This journey of healing, this journey of coming home to yourself, it opens up the world in a way that I swear to you might feel inconceivable in the moment that you're in right now. But if you step by step go through the things that we've discussed today, if you take those steps, then your life can be radically different. I invite you to take a breath. So I hope that this podcast has inspired you. I hope it has given you some really grounded, reality-based ways that you can start right now, today, on this healing journey that you are moving through to heal your heartbreak. And I also hope that it has really opened up your eyes to what is possible for you, what is possible in your world if you stay on this healing journey, if you really take the action you know you need to take, if you really keep walking, if you really pay attention, if you really go past awareness and into action, what can open up? Like your whole fucking world can open up. Everything can be different. And I hope that this podcast has shown you step by step, bit by bit, the way that you can walk that path so that it doesn't feel so insurmountable, so it doesn't feel so big that it doesn't feel like it's possible for you. Because every single bit of this healing journey is just one foot after the other, one bold move after the other. And so if you're really wanting to ground into the steps that we talked about today on this journey of healing your heartbreak, then I have a resource for you. It's called Invincible, and it's a free interactive heartbreak healing blueprint that I've created that's going to lead you through the 10 steps that I've been speaking about today to heal your heartbreak, to remember who the fuck you really are, and to become the woman that can create the life of her dreams. It is incredibly powerful. It's going to lead you step by step. It's going to give you things to reflect on. It's going to give you practices to incorporate into your life. And these are the things that change your life. Because when you start to actually take action towards your dream, this is when everything starts to change. Because you go from the passive to the active. You go from the viewer to the participant. And this is what allows you to begin to change your entire goddamn life. And so if you're ready to take that action step, you can go down to the show notes and I'll leave a link for it so that you can grab it there. It's absolutely free. Thank you so much for being here with me today. I really hope that you enjoyed today's show. I hope it gave you some inspiration or a new way to think about things or a next move on your path, on your journey. I also really encourage you, if you did enjoy today's show, to send it to somebody that you love, somebody that could benefit from the messages or the lessons that we learned in today's show. I also would love if you would review this podcast on Spotify or on YouTube or on Apple Podcasts, wherever you're listening to it, to really show people and tell people what you enjoyed and what you got out of this podcast so that we can grow the show, so that we can get it out to more people who are on the journey of healing their heartbreak and remembering who the fuck they are and creating this beautiful life. Because there is nothing more powerful in the world than a woman who knows exactly who she is, exactly what she wants, and feels worthy of it all. I will catch you on the flip side. You've been listening to the Heartbreak Alchemy Podcast with Alaska Wolf.